My name is Victoria Clark. I'm 29 years old, and I'm a drone pilot for the United States Air Force. 6 months ago, I took out a notorious terrorist leader. But at my own engagement party, in my parents' suburban Nevada home, I went cold when I heard my fiancé's voice. It was the exact same voice of the man I had personally confirmed was obliterated by my missile. He, Julian Croft, wasn't just alive, he was turning my father's company into a front for laundering money and moving weapons of mass destruction. My family worships him as a savior, while writing me off as their unstable daughter struggling with PTSD. He thought he had me cornered, a broken doll, helpless to watch him trample over everything I love, but he made a fatal mistake. He has no idea that to protect her family, a pilot is more than willing to turn her enemy's entire world into a battlefield. The sound that woke me wasn't the scream of a turbine or the distant crump of an explosion. It was the rhythmic hiss of a sprinkler head, spinning in a lazy arc across my parents' impossibly green lawn. For a second, just a split second, the sound twisted in my brain, morphing into the high-frequency whine of the MQ-9's engine, a sound I knew better than my own heartbeat. I was back in the box, the darkened, air-conditioned container at Creech Air Force Base, my world reduced to a bank of glowing screens. My hand twitched, reaching for a joystick that wasn't there. Then I opened my eyes. The Nevada sun was already a merciless white glare against the beige stucco walls of my childhood bedroom. The air smelled of chlorine from the pool and roses from my mother's meticulously tended garden. It was the smell of suburbia, of a life I no longer recognized as my own. It was supposed to be calming. It felt like a lie. I'd been home on medical leave for 3 weeks. The official diagnosis was post-traumatic stress disorder, a neat little label for the jagged mess of memories and reflexes that had taken up residence in my head. The mission, 6 months ago, had been a success. High-value target neutralized. A clean shot from 30,000 feet. The commendation was in a drawer somewhere, gathering dust. But the target's voice, a snippet of audio captured just before the strike, had a way of playing on a loop in the dead of night. A ghost in the machine. My machine. Downstairs, the clatter of silverware on porcelain announced that my mother was orchestrating breakfast. Eleanor Clark did not simply make breakfast, she conducted it, a symphony of domestic perfection designed to prove that everything was and always would be under control. "Victoria, darling, are you coming down? Julian will be here any minute," her voice called up the stairs, sweet as honey, sharp as glass. Julian, my fiancé, the solution to the Victoria problem, as my mother saw it. She introduced us a week after I got home. Julian Croft was a successful entrepreneur in logistics and import-export, a world away from my own. He was handsome in a way that seemed designed by a committee, strong jaw, perfect teeth, hair that fell just so. He was patient, understanding, and said all the right things about my service, calling it noble and heroic, words that felt like sandpaper on my soul. He was, in my mother's words, a godsend. I looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back was a stranger. There were dark circles under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. My body, honed by military discipline, felt coiled and restless in the soft cotton pajamas. I was a weapon in a jewelry box, and everyone was pretending I was just another trinket. I pulled on a pair of jeans and a plain gray t-shirt, ignoring the floral dress my mother had laid out for me. Armor, that's what it was. When I entered the kitchen, the scene was exactly as I'd pictured. My father, Richard, was already in his suit, scanning business reports on his tablet, a cup of black coffee untouched at his elbow. My younger brother, Leo, was slouched over the granite island, shoveling cereal into his mouth while scrolling through his phone. He was 22, still in that blissful phase of life where the world's biggest problem was a weak Wi-Fi signal. He was the only one who looked me in the eye. "Morning, Vic," he mumbled through a mouthful of Cheerios. "You sleep." "Like a log," I lied. My mother turned from the stove, her smile tight. "That's wonderful, dear. You need your rest, especially with the engagement party tonight." She gestured with a spatula toward my father. "Richard, tell your daughter how lovely she looks." My father glanced up, his eyes briefly registering my presence before returning to the screen. "Lovely, Victoria, very rested." He was a good man, my father, but his world was one of profit margins and supply chains. My world of kill boxes and encrypted communications was an alien planet he had no desire to visit. His company, Clark Logistics, had been his life's work. He'd built it from a single truck into a regional powerhouse. Just then, the doorbell chimed. My mother's face lit up as if the Messiah had arrived. "That's him." She bustled to the door, and a moment later, Julian Croft walked in, carrying a bouquet of lilies that were probably more expensive than my weekly groceries on base. He kissed my mother on the cheek, clapped my father on the shoulder like they were old friends, and gave Leo a nod. Then he turned his movie star smile on me. "There she is," he said, his voice a smooth baritone. He wrapped his arms around me and I forced myself not to stiffen. He smelled of expensive cologne and confidence. "I missed you. We'd only known each other for 3 weeks." "Julian, you are just in time. I've made your favorite," my mother cooed, gesturing to a plate of perfectly fluffy omelets. The conversation over breakfast was a carefully choreographed dance. Julian talked about a new contract he'd landed, shipping agricultural equipment to Southeast Asia. My father listened intently, offering advice on navigating customs in emerging markets. My mother steered the conversation toward the party that night, listing the important guests who were just dying to meet Victoria. I ate in silence, feeling the walls of this perfect life closing in. "Vic's quiet today," Leo observed, poking at his soggy cereal. Julian's hand found mine across the table. His thumb stroked my knuckles. "She's got a lot on her mind. We have to be patient with our hero." I wanted to snatch my hand away. Hero. The word felt like an accusation. The man on the screen hadn't thought I was a hero. His last words weren't a curse, just a calm, collected sentence to someone on the other end of his satellite phone. Business as usual, until it wasn't. "The party tonight is going to be wonderful," my mother continued, ignoring the undercurrent of tension. "A chance for everyone to celebrate you and Julian, a new beginning." A new beginning. It sounded like an erasure. They wanted to file down my sharp edges, paint over the parts of me that didn't fit into their pristine world. They wanted to replace Captain Victoria Clark, callsign Valkyrie, with Mrs. Julian Croft, suburban wife. And the terrifying part was, some broken piece of me wanted it too. The piece that was tired of the nightmares, tired of the vigilance, tired of being the ghost in the machine. That evening, the house transformed. Caterers swarmed the kitchen, a string quartet played softly on the patio, and fairy lights twinkled in the trees. My mother had insisted I wear the floral dress. It felt like a costume. As I stood beside Julian greeting guests, I felt a familiar sense of detachment, the same feeling I got while watching a target through a high-powered lens from miles above. I was there, but I wasn't. I was an observer of my own life. The guests were a blur of my parents, friends, and business associates. They all had the same things to say. "Congratulations, you're so brave, he's quite a catch." Each comment was a small, polite paper cut. Leo found me by the bar, a bottle of beer in his hand. "You holding up?" he asked, his eyes scanning the crowd. "Just another surveillance mission," I murmured, taking a sip of the champagne Julian had put in my hand. It tasted like ash. "Yeah, well, the hostels look pretty well fed," he joked. "Look, Vic, if this is too much, just say the word. I'll fake a seizure or something. Create a diversion." I managed a small smile. "Thanks, Leo, but I need to see this through." I wasn't sure what this was, the party, the engagement, this new life. Later, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the lawn, Julian's arm was wrapped possessively around my waist. He was in his element, charming a city councilman, laughing at the right moments, his public face as flawless as his private one. "I'm just going to take a quick call," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. "An overseas client. I'll be right back, my love." He squeezed my hand and walked away, pulling his phone from his pocket as he headed toward the quieter side of the house, near the rose garden. I watched him go, a strange unease prickling at the back of my neck. It was the old instinct, the one that had kept me alive. The feeling that something was out of place. I excused myself from the conversation with the councilman's wife, needing a moment of quiet. I drifted toward the French doors leading to the garden, the cool evening air a welcome relief from the stuffy, perfumed house. The music from the string quartet was fainter here. I could see Julian's silhouette standing near a large oak tree at the edge of the property, his back to me. He was speaking in low, urgent tones. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I just wanted to breathe. But then, a few words, carried on the breeze, reached my ears. He wasn't speaking English. It was Arabic, the dialect spoken in the Levant, a dialect I had spent hundreds of hours listening to, studying, memorizing. My blood went cold. I took a step closer, staying in the shadows of the doorway. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I strained to hear, my training kicking in, filtering out the party noise, focusing only on his voice. "Albite Hajah Lil Rai," he said. "The merchandise is ready for the shepherd." It was a coded phrase, benign to the untrained ear. But I wasn't untrained. I'd heard that exact phrase before, In the mission brief, it was a signal, a confirmation of a weapons shipment. And then he laughed. It was a short, harsh sound, devoid of the easy charm he usually wore like a second skin. It was the laugh of a man who held all the cards. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Julian Croft, the smooth-talking logistics mogul, speaking in coded Arabic? It had to be a coincidence. My PTSD was making me paranoid, connecting dots that weren't there. It had to be. But then he spoke again, and this time the words were a physical blow. He said a name, a call sign. Al-Khatib, the hawk. The world tilted. The champagne glass slipped from my numb fingers and shattered on the stone patio. The sound was shockingly loud in the sudden silence of my mind. The ghost in my head wasn't a memory anymore. It was real, the voice on the phone, the voice from the rose garden. The voice of the man I was engaged to marry. They were the same. Al-Khatib, the hawk, the high-value target from 6 months ago, the international arms dealer. The man my missile had turned into a cloud of dust and a red smear on a satellite image. The man I had killed. He was standing right there in my parents' garden, ending his phone call. He turned, and even from a distance, I saw his smile return as he looked back toward the party. Back toward me. It was the smile of a predator who had just found the perfect camouflage, and I was it. My training slammed into place like a blast shield. The shattered glass wasn't a mistake. It was a signal flare, and the only person who could see it was me. My mind, which moments before had been a fog of trauma and social anxiety, became chillingly clear. Threat assessment, asset protection, evasion. The kill chain was broken. The target was active, hostile, and had infiltrated the wire. He was inside my family's home. He was wearing my engagement ring on his finger. Julian was instantly at my side, his face a mask of concern. "Victoria, my God, are you all right? Your hand." I looked down. A small shard of glass had nicked my palm, a tiny bead of blood welling up. The pain was a grounding sensation, a sharp physical anchor in a world that had just dissolved into unreality. "I'm fine," I said, my voice steadier than I had any right to expect. I forced a shaky laugh. "Just clumsy. I think the crowd was just a little overwhelming for a second." I was feeding him the narrative he expected, the broken soldier, fragile, harmless. "Of course," he said, his voice dripping with sympathy. He pulled a silk handkerchief from his pocket and gently dabbed at my hand. His touch felt like a viper's kiss. "Let me get you a fresh drink, maybe some water." "No," I said, a little too quickly. I softened my tone. "No, thank you, Julian. I think I just need some air. Maybe I should go lie down for a bit. My head is pounding." Before he could protest, Leo was there, his easygoing slouch gone, replaced by a focused concern. He'd seen my face, and unlike everyone else, he knew how to read the weather patterns in my eyes. He saw the hurricane hiding behind the calm facade. "She's done," he announced, stepping between me and Julian. "Party over for Vic. I'm taking her upstairs." My mother materialized, her smile cemented in place but her eyes flashing with annoyance. "Leo, don't be dramatic. She's just a little tired. Victoria, darling, Mrs. Albright was just about to tell you about her trip to Tuscany." "Mom, not now," Leo said, his voice firm. He put a protective arm around my shoulder. "She needs to rest. Doctor's orders, remember?" The mention of the doctor was the magic word. It recontextualized my behavior as a medical issue, something unfortunate but forgivable. Julian's expression deepened with practiced understanding. "He's right, Alina," he said smoothly, taking control. "Her health is the most important thing. You go rest, my love." He leaned in and kissed my forehead. The gesture was so intimate, so possessive, it took every ounce of my discipline not to recoil. "I'll make your excuses. Everyone will understand." I let Leo guide me through the clusters of smiling, oblivious guests. Every back I passed felt like an exposed position. Every friendly face was a potential unknown. Was anyone else here part of his network? Was the catering staff vetted? My mind was a whirlwind of tactical paranoia. This house was no longer a home. It was an unsecured operating environment. As we reached the staircase, I glanced back. Julian was already back in the crowd, laughing, holding a hand up to a business associate. He looked completely at ease. He was a master of his craft, and his craft wasn't logistics. It was deception. I had been his biggest mark. Leo didn't speak until we were on the second-floor landing, the party sounds muted below. "A migraine, huh? Or is this another one of your tactical retreats?" "A little of both," I admitted, my voice low. We reached my bedroom door. "Vic, what's going on?" "For real, I haven't seen you look like that since, well, ever." I looked at my little brother, at his open, honest face, and felt a pang of guilt. I was about to lie to him, to use him, but it was for his own protection. The less he knew, the safer he and my parents would be. It's just the PTSD, Leo. Sometimes a sound or a smell can trigger it. It's a lot, I finished lamely. Leo's eyes narrowed. He knew me too well. He knew the difference between a real panic attack and a controlled tactical maneuver. He had seen both before, but he also knew not to push, not when I was like this. "Okay, Valkyrie," he said, using my old call sign, a name I hadn't heard in months. It was a sign of trust, a reminder of the person I was beneath the floral dress and the fake smiles. "Get some rest. I'll run interference downstairs." He closed the door behind him, leaving me in the sudden, deafening silence. The carefully constructed dam inside my head broke, and the truth flooded in. Julian Croft was Al-Khatib. The man who had charmed my parents, the man who had slid a diamond ring onto my finger, was a ghost I had created. How? The strike had been perfect. We had triple confirmed the target's location via signals intelligence, drone surveillance, and a human asset on the ground. We watched the building for 72 hours. He went in, he never came out. The Hellfire missile doesn't leave survivors. It doesn't leave much of anything. We had post-strike thermal imaging. One heat signature extinguished. Confirmed kill. My mind raced through the possibilities. A double, a decoy, someone else using his phone, or the asset on the ground lied. He was paid off. He confirmed a false positive, and Al-Khatib walked away, officially dead, free to build a new identity. A new life. An identity so clean, so perfect, that he could walk into the home of the very pilot who tried to kill him and be welcomed as a son. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. This wasn't just hiding. This was a counterattack, a psychological operation of the highest order. He had targeted me specifically. He had studied me, my family, our vulnerabilities, my father's ambition, my mother's desire for a perfect, normal life for her daughter, my own trauma. He was using it all against me. He had turned my home into a prison, my family into his unwitting accomplices. I stood up and began to pace the room, my bare feet silent on the thick carpet. My mind shifted from how to why. Revenge was the obvious answer, an eye for an eye. He wanted to destroy me the way I had tried to destroy him, but it was more than that. The way he spoke to my father about logistics, the talk of expanding international routes, Clark Logistics, my father's company, it was the perfect cover. A legitimate mid-sized company with a solid reputation looking to expand. A perfect vehicle for washing money, for moving anything. Weapons, personnel, intelligence. He wasn't just here for revenge, he was here on business. My family was his new corporate acquisition. I went to my laptop, my fingers flying across the keyboard. My personal email, my social media, all useless. I needed access to the CyberNet, the military's secure network. I opened a secure browser and tried to log into my old portal at Creech. My credentials, once a key to a kingdom of secrets, were now useless. Access DNIED. User status, inactive medical leave. Of course, I was grounded, walled off from the very information I needed to save my own life. I tried a different route, a less official one. I searched for open-source intelligence on Julian Croft. The results were a digital masterpiece of fabrication. Articles in obscure business journals praising his innovative shipping solutions. Photos of him at charity galas. A company website for Croft International, slick and professional, listing offices in Geneva and Singapore that probably didn't exist. It was a perfect digital ghost, a legend so well-crafted it was impenetrable from the outside. I switched tactics. I started digging into my father's company, Clark Logistics. For years, it had been a domestic operation, shipping goods across the American Southwest. But the company website now boasted a new international partnership. A press release, dated 2 weeks ago, just after I came home, just after I met Julian, announced a merger with a company called Kestrel Imports. Kestrel, a type of falcon, a bird of prey, a hawk. He was mocking me. I fell back into my chair, the screen's glow illuminating the dawning horror on my face. It was real, all of it. He was weaving his empire into the fabric of my family's life, and they were thanking him for it. I had to warn them. But how? If I went to my parents with this, what would I say? By the way, my fiancé, the man you adore, is actually a terrorist I tried to blow up, and now he's using your company to run his evil empire. They would think I'd lost my mind. They would call the therapist, not the FBI. They would trust Julian, the charming, stable businessman, over their traumatized, unstable daughter. He had insulated himself perfectly. No, I couldn't go to them. I couldn't go to the local police. This was far above their pay grade. I needed my unit. I needed to talk to Colonel Madsen, my commanding officer. I needed to talk to Spectre, my intelligence analyst, the one who could see the patterns in the static that no one else could. I picked up my personal cell phone, then put it back down. If Julian was who I thought he wouldn't be sloppy. My phone, my laptop, the house Wi-Fi, it could all be compromised. He was an arms dealer, but his real weapon was information. I was alone, an unarmed operative in a hostile zone with no comms. My door creaked open. I slammed my laptop shut, my heart leaping into my throat. It was my mother, carrying a small tray with a glass of water and a bottle of pills. "I brought you some of your medication," she said softly, her eyes filled with a sad, pitying look that I hated. "Julian is so worried. He's been asking about you every 5 minutes. He told your father he's thinking of making a significant investment in the company to help with the Kestrel deal. He said he wants to make sure we're all secure." The irony was a physical weight in my chest. "That's very generous of him, Mom. He's a good man, Victoria. He sees the good in you, even when you can't see it yourself. Don't push him away." She set the tray on my bedside table. "Please just try for us." She left, closing the door behind her. I looked at the pills, the sedatives my doctor had prescribed to help me sleep, to dull the edges, to make me compliant. Right now, they were the last thing I needed. I needed my edges sharp, razor sharp. The party sounds from downstairs were beginning to fade. Guests were leaving. Soon, the house would be quiet. Soon, Julian might come up to check on me. The window of opportunity was closing. I needed a weapon, not a gun, but a tool, a secure line, a way to punch a hole through his web and signal for help. And there was only one person in this house I could trust to get it for me. I waited 10 minutes, listening to the sounds of the party dying out. I heard my father's booming laugh, my mother's polite goodbyes. Then I opened my door and slipped down the hallway to Leo's room. I knocked softly. He opened it, looking surprised. He had headphones around his neck and a video game was paused on his screen. "Hey, thought you were sleeping." "I can't," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I stepped inside his room and closed the door. "Leo, I need your help, it's serious, and you have to promise me you won't ask any questions." He took off his headphones, his playful demeanor vanishing. He saw the look on my face. This wasn't about a party anymore. "Okay," he said slowly. "What do you need?" "I need a phone, a new one, a prepaid burner registered to a fake name, and I need a laptop, a cheap one also bought with cash, untraceable. I can't use any of my own devices." Leo stared at me, his brow furrowed in confusion and worry. "Vic, what the hell is this? Are you in some kind of trouble? Is someone threatening you?" "I can't explain, not now, you just have to trust me. This isn't about me running away. This is about me fighting back. Can you do it?" He hesitated for a long moment, searching my eyes. I held his gaze, trying to project a calm and control I didn't feel. I was asking him to step into my world, a world of shadows and secrets, and I hated myself for it, but I had no other choice. Finally, he nodded. Yeah, I can do it, first thing in the morning." "Thank you," I breathed, relief washing over me. It was a start. A small, desperate move on a chessboard where I was hopelessly outmatched, but it was a move. Just. "Be careful, Vic," he said, his voice low. I nodded. "Always." I slipped back to my room just as I heard footsteps on the stairs. Not Leo's casual tread, but a heavier, more deliberate sound. Julian. I dove into bed and pulled the covers up, feigning sleep, my heart hammering against my ribs. My door opened. I could feel him standing there in the doorway, watching me. The silence stretched on, thick with unspoken menace. He was assessing me just as I had assessed him. Two predators circling each other in the dark. Finally, he quietly closed the door and was gone. I lay there, motionless, until the sun came up, knowing that the real war had just begun. Use arrow up and arrow down to select a turn, enter to jump to it, and escape to return to the chat. The morning was a performance. I moved through the kitchen with a deliberate, practiced slowness, as if my limbs were heavy with fatigue. I let my eyes remain unfocused, my posture slightly slumped. I was playing the role they had assigned me, the convalescent. Every movement was a lie. Inside, my mind was a high-speed processor, analyzing every word, every glance. Julian and my father were already at the table, heads bent over a stack of papers spread across the polished wood. They were the picture of industry, two men building an empire before the sun had fully risen. The papers were contracts. The Kestrel deal. The instrument of my family's destruction. "Ah, she's awake," my father said, looking up with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He was excited, energized by the prospect of this new venture. He was a shark who had just been invited to hunt in a bigger ocean, unaware that he was swimming with a leviathan. Julian stood and came to my side, placing a gentle hand on the small of my back. "How are you feeling, Victoria? You gave us all a scare last night." just a headache." "I'm sorry I ruined the party," I murmured, allowing him to guide me to a chair. "You ruined nothing," he said, his voice a low, soothing caress. "The only thing that matters is you." He poured me a cup of coffee, his movements fluid and confident. He was so good at this. He could have been a politician, a CEO, a cult leader. He was all of them and none of them. He was a predator. My mother bustled in from the pantry, carrying a jar of her homemade marmalade. "I think we should cancel your therapy session for today, dear. You should rest." "No," I said, perhaps too firmly. I softened my voice. "No, I think I should go. Dr. Evans said it's important to stick to the routine. It helps with grounding." It was the perfect excuse. I needed to get out of the house. Alone. Julian placed his hand over mine on the table. It was warm and strong. "Whatever you think is best, my love, just know that I'm here. You don't have to go through this alone." The threat was unspoken but clear. I'm always here. I'm always watching. Leo ambled in, wearing basketball shorts and a wrinkled t-shirt. He avoided looking at me, grabbing a box of Pop-Tarts from the cupboard. "Leo, you're not going to eat that garbage, are you?" my mother chided. "Got a carb-load," he said, already heading for the door, "meeting Josh at the courts." He glanced at me just for a fraction of a second and gave a nearly imperceptible nod. It was the signal. He was on his way. My heart gave a hopeful leap. After breakfast, Julian and my father went into the study to continue their work. I could hear the low murmur of their voices, the sound of my father laughing at something Julian said. He was being charmed, disarmed, and fleeced, and he was grateful for it. I retreated to the pool area, a book in my lap that I had no intention of reading. The sun was hot on my skin. I needed to appear listless, lost in my own world. It was the best cover I had. 20 minutes later, Julian slid the glass door open and stepped outside. He had taken off his suit jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his crisp white shirt. He looked like an advertisement for a luxury watch. He sat in the lounge chair next to me, turning it to face me. "I don't want to push," he began, his voice earnest and low, "but I can't help but worry. Last night, you seemed terrified of something." Here it was. The probe. He was testing my cover story. I closed my book, not meeting his eyes. I looked at the shimmering, impossibly blue water of the pool. "It's hard to explain," I said, letting my voice tremble slightly. "Sometimes I'm not here, I'm back there. In the container. The sounds, the pressure, it all comes back. A glass breaking can sound like something else." He reached out and took my hand. "What was it like, Victoria, to have that much power, to decide who lives and who dies from so far away?" The question was a scalpel, expertly inserted to find a nerve. He wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was asking if I remembered, if I suspected. He wanted to know what I saw in my nightmares. Did I see his face? I had to give him an answer that was both true and a lie. "It wasn't power," I whispered, and this part was the truth. "It was just a job. You follow the protocols. You analyze the data. You get confirmation. And you push a button. You're detached. You have to be." The person on the screen, they're not a person. They're a target designation, a set of coordinates. It's only later, afterwards, that your brain tries to make them human. That's the part that breaks you. I finally looked at him, letting him see the manufactured tears welling in my eyes. "I don't want to be that person anymore, Julian. I just want to be here, with you, and feel safe." His expression softened completely. The test was over. I had passed. He leaned in and kissed me, a long, gentle kiss. It felt like swallowing poison. "You are safe," he murmured against my lips. "I will never let anything hurt you." He stayed for a few more minutes, talking about his plans for the company, for us. A house in Lake Tahoe, trips to Europe. Children. He was painting a picture of a beautiful future, a gilded cage he was building just for me. I nodded and smiled, playing the part of the grateful captive. When he finally left to take another business call, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My body was shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer, soul-crushing effort of the performance. 2 hours later, Leo came back. He came straight to my room, tossing a heavy backpack onto my bed. "Got your gear, Captain," he said, his voice low. I unzipped the bag. Inside was a brand-new, shrink-wrapped burner phone and a small, anonymous-looking black laptop. "How did you pay?" I asked, my voice urgent. "Cash. Told Mom and Dad I was selling my old gaming console to Josh for a couple $100 to put toward a new one. They didn't blink. I went to a Walmart 10 miles from here. No one will connect it." I felt a surge of pride. He was a civilian, a kid who had never faced a threat bigger than a final exam, but he had instincts. He had followed my instructions to the letter. "Leo, I started, not knowing how to thank him. "Don't," he cut me off. "Just tell me one thing, is this about Julian?" I froze. "What makes you say that?" Come on, Vic, I'm not an idiot. You were fine, well, your version of fine until that party. Until him, I don't like him. He's too smooth. It's like he's wearing a mask. He saw it. He didn't have the training or the context, but he felt it, the predator's aura. Your instincts are good, I said quietly, but you can't say anything, to anyone, especially not mom and dad. Do you understand? It could put them in danger. He nodded, his face grim. What are you going to do? I'm going to make a call, I said, pulling the burner phone from its plastic shell. I'm going to call in an airstrike. He knew it was a figure of speech, but he still looked alarmed. I'll keep a lookout. Yell if you need me. He left, closing the door softly. I was alone again, but this time I wasn't defenseless. I had a weapon. I took the new laptop and phone into the adjoining bathroom, locking the door. I turned on the shower and the ventilation fan to create white noise, a standard counter-surveillance measure. I sat on the tiled floor, the laptop balanced on my knees. I powered it on. No personal data, no history, a ghost. I activated the burner phone. The screen flared to life. It asked for a contact to add. My fingers hovered over the keypad. There were so many numbers I could call, so many people I trusted, but I needed more than trust. I needed power. I needed someone who could move mountains and burn secrets, someone who owed me. My first call wouldn't be to my CO, it would be to a man who didn't officially exist, a man who went by the call sign Oracle. He was a legend in the intelligence community, a master of the dark arts of information warfare. He had been my instructor at advanced training, and I had once saved his career from a catastrophic intelligence leak. He had told me then, Valkyrie, you ever need a ghost, you call me. Day or night? I entered the 16-digit encrypted number from memory. My thumb hovered over the call button. This was it, the point of no return, the moment I declared war. I took a deep breath, the steam from the shower filling the small room like a tactical fog, and I pressed send. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, a gravelly whisper that sounded like it was filtered through a mile of static and a lifetime of secrets. Go for Oracle. Oracle, this is Valkyrie. Authentication code Victor Ralph Lima Kilo 79er, I said, my voice low and steady, the protocol coming back to me as if I'd recited it yesterday. There was a pause on the other end, a silence so profound I could hear the faint electronic hum of the secure connection. He was running the code, checking it against a database that was buried so deep it probably ran on a server at the bottom of the ocean. Code is green, Valkyrie. It's been a while. I heard you were grounded. Smelling the roses in Nevada. His voice was devoid of emotion, a dry rustle of dead leaves. The roses have thorns, I replied. I have a situation, a compromised asset, a Lazarus protocol. Lazarus, the code for a target who had come back from the dead. Another pause, this one shorter, sharper. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head. He wasn't surprised. In his world, nothing was impossible, and no one was ever truly gone. That's a bold claim for an officer on medical leave using a burner phone. The target is Al-Khatib, I said, dropping the name like a grenade. The silence this time was different. It was heavy, charged. Al-Khatib wasn't just any target. He was a kingpin, a phantom who had been at the top of the kill list for half a decade. His death had been a major victory, a feather in the cap of the entire intelligence community. A victory I had delivered. Valkyrie, you need to be 100% certain. Oracle's voice was like ice. If you're wrong, this call will be the end of your career. If you have a PTSD-induced hallucination and I act on it, we both go down. It's him, Oracle. I have direct, positive identification, voice and visual. He's here. He has infiltrated my family. He's using the name Julian Croft. I quickly, concisely laid out the situation. The engagement, the Arabic phrase, the call sign my father's company, the Kestrel deal. I gave him facts, data points, stripping away all the personal horror and leaving only the tactical reality. I was a pilot giving a battle damage assessment, not a daughter watching her family walk into a trap. When I finished, there was a long silence. I could hear the faint sound of typing in the background. He was working. Croft, Julian, born in Geneva. Educated in London. No criminal record, no military service. His import-export business, Croft International, is a shell. Minimal assets, no shipping history. The legend is new. It's clean, too clean. He was reading from a file he had conjured out of thin air in less than a minute. The Kestrel partnership with your father's company is his first major move under this identity. He's using your family's reputation as his cover. I know. He's here for revenge and for business. He's building an operational platform right under my nose. And you're compromised, Oracle stated flatly. You're inside the target environment without support and without a weapon. Your family members are non-combatants being used as human shields. It's a classic hostage scenario. You're just the only one who knows it. That's why I'm calling you, Oracle. I can't go through official channels. They'll write me off as unstable. Madsen will bench me permanently. I need intel. I need a ghost. What do you need specifically? First, I need you to confirm it's him. I need you to dig into the original mission file. Find the flaw. How did he get away? Was the asset on the ground dirty? Was the intel bad? I need to know how he operates. Second, I need everything you can find on the Kestrel deal. What are they moving? Where is the money coming from? I need leverage. And third, he prompted. He knew there was a third. Third, I need a way to communicate with you securely. I need an exit strategy for my family when this all goes sideways. The typing stopped. This is a big ask, Valkyrie. You're asking me to go off-book to run a covert operation against a target the entire world thinks is dead, based on the word of a single, compromised pilot. You're asking me to risk everything. I saved your career in Kandahar, Oracle. You were compromised, and I pulled you out of the fire. I'm calling in the marker. The line was silent for a full 30 seconds. It was the longest 30 seconds of my life. I heard the water from the shower gurgling down the drain. My reflection in the mirror was a pale, grim-faced woman with eyes that looked far too old for her face. The marker is acknowledged, he said finally. His voice had changed. The skepticism was gone. He was in. Here's the protocol. This phone is now compromised. So is the laptop. He's good, but I'm better. I'm running a countersweep of your house's network now. He's got a passive sniffer on your Wi-Fi, but it's amateur hour compared to what he could be doing. He thinks you're a civilian now. He's underestimating you. We'll use that. He continued, his voice crisp and professional, the voice of a man who commanded unseen armies. You will destroy the phone and the laptop. Physically, no half measures. Go to the public library tomorrow, at precisely 1400 hours. Go to the nonfiction section, Dewey Decimal 355.82. Military technology. Find a book on unmanned aerial vehicles. There will be a microSD card tucked into the spine. That card will contain a secure communications app that will route through a series of untraceable shell corporations I own. It will give you a direct, encrypted line to me and only me. From now on, that is your only line of communication. Do you copy? Solid copy. One more thing, Valkyrie. You are no longer on medical leave. As of this moment, you are an active, deep-cover intelligence asset. Your mission is to observe, report, and survive. Do not engage the target. Do not attempt to neutralize him. You are the bait. We are going to let him build his network around you, and when he's fully exposed, we're going to burn it to the ground. This is your new mission. Do you accept? The question hung in the steamy air. He was offering me a way back, not to the person I was, but to the warrior I had always been. It was a terrifying, exhilarating choice. Mission accepted, I said. Good, now get rid of those electronics and go back to playing the broken soldier. Your performance has to be flawless. He's watching your every move. The line went dead. I sat on the floor for a moment, the dead phone in my hand. The weight of the world had shifted. I was no longer a victim. I was an operative. I had a mission. I stood up and systematically destroyed the evidence. I snapped the burner phone in half, my grip surprisingly strong. I removed the SIM card and crushed it under my heel. I took the laptop and submerged it in the full bathtub, watching the air bubbles rise as its circuits fried. It was a baptism. The death of Victoria Clark, the traumatized fiancé, and the rebirth of Valkyrie. Later, I took the dead electronics, wrapped them in an old towel, and buried them at the bottom of the kitchen trash can, beneath coffee grounds and orange peels. No one would ever find them. That night at dinner, I was a different person. Outwardly, I was the same. I was quiet, withdrawn, pushing food around my plate, but inside I was a hawk. I was watching Julian, analyzing his every word, his every gesture. I was no longer looking at my fiancé. I was looking at my target. He was talking to my father about a warehouse. The port of Long Beach is the perfect hub for us, Richard, he was saying. But security is key. We need a state-of-the-art facility, something off the books private, to store the more sensitive agricultural equipment before it ships. Sensitive equipment. It was a phrase I had heard 100 times in mission briefs. It never meant tractors. My father was nodding eagerly, completely captivated. I know just the place. A holding company of mine owns a warehouse in Wilmington. It's been empty for months. We can retrofit it however you like. They were building the armory right in front of me. Using my father's assets, my family's name. After dinner, Julian found me on the patio looking up at the stars. A penny for your thoughts, he said, his voice soft as he came up behind me. He wrapped his arms around my waist, pulling me back against his chest. I had to fight every instinct in my body that screamed to drive an elbow into his ribs. "I was just thinking," I said, my voice a practiced, dreamy whisper. "It's so quiet here, peaceful. I don't think I ever want to leave." I felt him smile against my hair. "You won't have to," he said. "I'm going to take care of everything." I leaned my head back against his shoulder, looking up at the vast, dark sky. It looked just like the sky on my monitor, a silent theater of operations. But tonight, I wasn't in the sky, looking down. I was on the ground in the kill box, and the hunt was on. The next morning felt like preparing for a mission. Every step was calculated. My objective, the Henderson Public Library. Time on target, 1,400 hours. The primary obstacle, my own family, the unwitting wardens of my gilded cage. I chose my clothes with care, not the jeans and t-shirt of yesterday's defiance, but a simple sundress. Soft, non-threatening, the uniform of a woman trying to get better. I went down for breakfast, the mask of fragile recovery firmly in place. "I have my therapy session with Dr. Evans at 10, I announced to no one in particular as I poured myself a coffee. It was a lie, of course. My next appointment wasn't for 3 days, but it was the perfect alibi. My mother looked up from her tablet, a flicker of disapproval in her eyes. "Oh, must you, darling? I thought we could go look at wedding venues this afternoon. The Sunset Gardens have an opening and Julian was so keen on it." Julian, ever the perfect fiancé, interjected smoothly. "There's always tomorrow, Alina. Victoria's health is the priority. We have to support her recovery process, whatever it takes." He smiled at me, a warm, reassuring smile that made my skin crawl. He was endorsing my alibi, not out of kindness, but because it fit his narrative of me, the broken little bird he was nursing back to health. "Besides," he added, turning to my father, "you and I will be tied up most of the day anyway. I want to go and see that warehouse in Wilmington you mentioned. The sooner we get it operational, the better." Another breadcrumb. Another piece of intel, offered freely. He felt untouchable. He was moving his pieces across the board with arrogant confidence, assuming I wasn't even watching the game. "Excellent," my father boomed, rubbing his hands together. "I'll have my assistant draw up the access papers. You'll have the full run of the place by this afternoon." The drive to my fictional therapy appointment was the first time I had been truly alone and out of the house since the party. I checked my mirrors constantly, my eyes scanning for tails. A black sedan stayed 2 cars behind me for 3 blocks. A coincidence? A blue pickup truck took the same exit off the freeway. Paranoia or tradecraft? In my new reality, they were one and the same. I performed a series of standard counter-surveillance maneuvers, 3 consecutive right turns, an abrupt lane change before an intersection. The sedan continued straight. The truck turned off. I was clean. For now. I drove to a coffee shop near my therapist's office and sat in the parking lot for an hour, watching the clock. I had to account for the time. At 11:30, I drove away, taking a long, circuitous route toward the public library. I was early, but I needed to scout the location. The Henderson Public Library was a low, sprawling brick building, a monument to civic quietude. It smelled of old paper, floor wax, and neglect. It was the perfect antithesis to my world of high-tech warfare. It was the last place anyone would look for a spy. I entered, my footsteps echoing in the high-ceilinged atrium. I spent an hour wandering the stacks, pretending to browse. I picked up a romance novel, a history of the Hoover Dam, a cookbook. I was building a cover, becoming just another bored suburbanite killing time. My heart was a slow, steady drum. This was familiar territory in a strange way. The long, quiet hours of surveillance before a strike. The patience. The waiting. The only difference was that this time I was the drone. At 13:55 hours, I made my move. I walked calmly toward the back of the library to the nonfiction section. The aisle was empty. The silence was absolute, broken only by the gentle hum of the fluorescent lights. I scanned the shelves. 355. Military science. My hands were steady, my breathing even. I was a machine built for this. I found the subsection, 355.82. Military technology. My eyes scanned the titles, and there it was. Unmanned aerial vehicles, a tactical revolution. The irony was so thick I could taste it. I pulled the heavy book from the shelf. It felt solid, real. I ran my thumb along the top of the pages, then down the spine. Nothing. My heart skipped a beat. Had I missed it? Was it a trap? I flipped the book over. I ran my fingers along the inside of the spine where the cardboard backing met the binding. And there it was. A tiny, almost imperceptible bump. With a practiced movement, keeping the book low and out of sight of the main aisles, I used my fingernail to work the object free. A microSD card, no bigger than my pinky nail, fell into my waiting palm. It was black, featureless, anonymous. It was the key to everything. I palmed it, my fist closing around the tiny piece of plastic. I felt a surge of adrenaline of triumph. Phase 1 complete. I slid the book back into its place on the shelf, the movement fluid and natural. No one would ever know it had been disturbed. I walked toward the exit, my posture relaxed, my pace unhurried. I was just a woman leaving a library. I pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped out into the blinding Nevada sun, a ghost who had just acquired a weapon. I was halfway to my car when I saw it, parked across the street, partially obscured by a large pine tree, a white SUV. My mother's car. I froze for a split second, my blood turning to ice. She was in the driver's seat, talking on her phone, her head turned toward the library entrance. She wasn't just in the area. She was waiting. She was watching. My mind reeled. Had Julian sent her? Did he suspect something? Or was this just my mother in her own misguided, suffocating way, checking up on me, making sure I had actually gone to my therapy session? In that moment, it didn't matter. The effect was the same. The walls of my prison weren't just built by my enemy, they were reinforced by my family's love. I couldn't let her see me. I had come from the direction of the library, not the therapist's office, which was 3 blocks in the opposite direction. If she saw me now, the questions would start. My alibi would crumble. I ducked my head, turning away from her car as if I were looking for something in my purse. I changed my trajectory, moving away from my own vehicle and walking down the sidewalk, putting a row of parked cars between me and her line of sight. Every step was an agony of suspense. I could feel her eyes on my back. I risked a quick glance at my car's side mirror. She was still on the phone, distracted for a moment. It was now or never. I opened the door to my car, slid in, and started the engine in one smooth motion. I didn't look in her direction. I just pulled out of the parking spot and drove away, my hands clenched on the steering wheel, the tiny, precious SD card digging into the flesh of my palm. I had the intel, but I had also discovered a new threat. My own mother had become an unwitting agent for the enemy, her concern a more effective surveillance tool than any camera Julian could have installed. I was more trapped than I had ever been. The drive home was a masterclass in controlled breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. The technique was designed to lower an operator's heart rate in a high-stress environment. My car was now a high-stress environment. The microSD card was a burning coal in my fist. My mother, my own mother, was a hostile surveillance asset. I replayed the scene in my head. Her car, parked with a clear line of sight to the library exit. Her on the phone. Who was she talking to? Julian? Had he called her, feigning concern? Eleanor, I'm just worried about Victoria. She's been gone for hours. Could you just check on her, make sure she's all right? It would be so easy for him. He could weaponize my mother's love, turn her into his own unwitting drone, and she would thank him for the privilege of being used. The alternative was that she had acted on her own, her suffocating need for control driving her to follow me. In some ways, that was worse. It meant the prison I was in wasn't just Julian's construction. It was a family affair. When I pulled into the driveway, her white SUV was already there, parked neatly in its usual spot. The confrontation was inevitable. I had to calibrate my response perfectly. Not defensive, not angry, just tired, broken. It was the only camouflage that worked. I walked into the house. The air was thick with a tense, expectant silence. She was waiting for me in the living room, standing by the fireplace, her arms crossed. The loving mother facade had been replaced by the steely gaze of a disappointed CEO. "Your therapy appointment ended over 2 hours ago," she stated, her voice clipped. It wasn't a question. It was an indictment. "I called Dr. Evans' office. His receptionist said you canceled this morning." The lie was exposed. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my face remained placid. I let my shoulders slump, my eyes fall to the floor. I let out a long, shuddering sigh. "I was going to go," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "I got in the car, I drove to the building, and I couldn't go in." I looked up at her, my eyes pleading, swimming with manufactured tears. I parked the car and I just started driving. I didn't even know where I was going. I ended up at the library. It was quiet. No one was looking at me. "I'm sorry I lied, Mom. I was just ashamed." Her expression flickered. For a moment, the prosecutor faltered and the mother returned. She saw what I wanted her to see, not a liar, but a daughter in pain. Her anger was being disarmed by her own pity. "Oh, Victoria," she said, her voice softening. The tension in her shoulders eased. She came forward and put her hands on my arms. "Why didn't you just call me? I would have come to get you. You shouldn't be alone when you're like this." I didn't want to be a burden, I mumbled, leaning into her touch just enough to sell the performance. You are never a burden, she insisted, though her tone suggested I often was. But you cannot lie to us, to me, or to Julian. He is trying so hard to help you to build a life for you. This secrecy, it's not healthy. It's part of the sickness. At that moment, Julian appeared in the doorway of the study, a file in his hand. He took in the scene with a quick, intelligent glance, my tear-streaked face, my mother's concerned posture. He had timed his entrance perfectly. Is everything all right? He asked, his voice a balm of calm authority. My mother turned to him, her new ally. Victoria had a difficult morning. She had a sort of panic attack. She didn't make it to her appointment. Julian was at my side in an instant. He put an arm around my shoulder, pulling me into a gentle hug. I was trapped between them, a fortress of suffocating concern. It's all right, he murmured, his lips close to my ear. Recovery isn't a straight line, my love. There are good days and bad days. We're here for you on all of them. He looked at my mother over my head. Let's not pressure her, Alina. What she needs now is rest and quiet, not an interrogation. He had completely taken control. He was defending me, positioning himself as my protector, my only true advocate. He was isolating me from my own family while simultaneously tightening his grip on them. It was masterful. You're right, of course, my mother said, her voice filled with admiration for his wisdom and patience. Julian stroked my hair. Why don't you go upstairs and rest, Victoria? I'll bring you up some tea later. Okay, I whispered, grateful for the dismissal. I retreated upstairs, the weight of their combined gaze on my back. I had survived the interrogation. My cover was intact. But Julian's position was stronger than ever. I needed to see what was on that card. My own laptop was out of the question. Even if it weren't compromised, using it now would be too obvious. I needed an alternative, a device no one would think to monitor. I went to Leo's room and knocked. He opened it, a game controller in his hand. Hey, he said, his eyes searching my face for answers. You okay? Mom looked like she was about to declare martial law. I'm fine, handled it, I said quietly. Listen, can I borrow your PlayStation? The doctor said I should try to find a hobby, something distracting. Figured I could try shooting aliens instead of. It was a plausible excuse, a normal person's attempt at normalcy. Leo bought it immediately. Yeah, sure, but my high score on Galactic Overlord is untouchable, just so you know. He helped me carry the console into my room and hook it up to my television. It was a bulky, black machine, a Trojan horse sitting in plain sight. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. Vic, he said, his voice serious. Whatever you're doing, you can tell me, I can help. I looked at my brave, naive little brother and my heart ached. The best way you can help right now is by not knowing anything. Just be my brother, that's all I need. He nodded, though I could see the worry in his eyes. Okay, but the offer stands. He left and I locked the door. I waited, listening, until I heard my father and Julian's cars leave the driveway. They were on their way to the warehouse. I was alone in the house with my mother, who was probably downstairs, happily planning the wedding of her daughter to a monster. The window of opportunity was open. I turned on the PlayStation. The familiar blue home screen lit up the room. I took a deep breath, my hand trembling slightly as I retrieved the microSD card from my pocket. There was a USB adapter attached to one of Leo's charging cables. It would have to do. I carefully inserted the tiny card into the adapter and plugged it into the console's front port. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a new icon appeared on the screen. It looked like a generic media file. No name, no description. I navigated to it with the controller and selected it. The screen went black. A single, military-style text cursor blinked in the upper left corner. This was it. The secure portal, my lifeline. I typed my call sign. Valkyrie, the response was instantaneous. Oracle, stand by for data burst. A stream of encrypted files began to download, appearing on the screen as strings of random alphanumeric code. It took less than 10 seconds. When it was done, the cursor blinked again, waiting. I opened the first file. It was a photograph. Long range, slightly grainy, taken through a powerful lens. A man was stepping out of a black Mercedes in a dusty street in what looked like Ramadi. He was younger, his beard fuller, but the eyes, the sharp, intelligent set of his jaw, it was him. It was Julian. The file was dated 2 years ago, a year and a half before his supposed death. This was the proof. The ghost had a face. I opened the second file. It was a single-page intelligence report, a summary of Oracle's findings. It was worse than I had imagined. The human asset who had confirmed Al-Khatib's presence in the building before the strike was an informant named Amir al-Jabari. 2 days after the strike, Amir had disappeared. A week after that, a bank account in the Cayman Islands, registered to his sister, received an anonymous wire transfer of $10 million. The kill was dirty. The mission had been a lie from the start. They had targeted a decoy, a double. Al-Khatib had sacrificed one of his own men to fake his death and buy himself a clean slate. The third file was a series of shipping manifests for the Kestrel deal. They were disguised as documents for my father's company, Clark Logistics. The cargo was listed as sealed generator components and industrial spectrometers. Harmless. But Oracle had added a note in red text at the bottom. Payload weight and crate diamines are inconsistent with declared cargo. Analysis SUGGSDS dense, SHIELDED material. Possibly WEAPONS grade centrifuge components or unrefined uranium ore. Highly probable WMD proliferation. I felt the air leave my lungs. This wasn't just about moving guns or washing money. This was nuclear. He was using my father's trucks, my family's name, to transport the building blocks for a dirty bomb. My blood ran cold. The scale of his operation, the sheer evil of it, was beyond anything I had anticipated. A new message from Oracle appeared on the screen. Valkyrie, one more thing. ANALYZD your vehicle's telemetry via satellite overlay. Your fiancé isn't just underestimating you, he's toying with you. He placed a GPS tracker on your car the night of the party, magnetic under the rear bumper. He knew you were going to the library. He knew your mother was there. He probably sent her. He's testing your REACTIONS. He's watching everything. Assume you are never alone. The words hit me like a physical blow. The paranoia wasn't in my head. It was real. I wasn't just being watched, I was being played. This entire day, my clever alibi, my close call with my mother, it had all been a performance on a stage he had built. He had been in the audience the entire time, watching to see how I would react, testing the resilience of his new pet. I looked around my childhood bedroom at the soft pastel walls and the innocent pictures of a girl I no longer knew. It wasn't a cage, it was a laboratory, and I was the experiment. The rage came first, a white-hot flash that made me want to smash the television, to scream, to tear the whole house down. He was playing with me. He had orchestrated the entire day, using my mother as a puppet just to see what I would do. It was a test of my obedience, my compliance. By running, by hiding, by creating a clever lie, I had behaved exactly as a frightened victim would. I had passed his test, confirming his belief that I was a broken, manageable thing. Then the rage cooled, solidifying into something harder, colder, ice. He thought this was a game. He thought he was the master puppeteer. He was about to find out what happens when one of the puppets cuts its own strings. My fingers flew across the controller's keypad. Oracle, target is testing me. Using MY family to box ME in, I need to change the game. I need to go on the offensive. The reply was swift. Negative, Valkyrie. Your mission is to observe and report. Do not engage. You are too deep. You have no support. That's not a mission, Oracle. That's a death sentence. He's moving WMD components through my father's company. We don't have time for passive surveillance. He's going to make a deal. He's going to ship. And then he's going to clean house. MY family will be the first CASULTIS. They're loose ends. I waited, my heart pounding. I was disobeying a direct order, challenging the very man who was my only lifeline. The cursor blinked for a long, tense minute. When the reply came, it was different. Less commanding, more collaborative. What are you proposing? He thinks I'm fragile, broken, predictable. I'm going to use that. Instead of avoiding HIM, I'm going to cling to HIM. I'm going to become the perfect, adoring, TRAUMATIZD fiancé he WANTS me to be. I'm going to ask to be a part of his world. I'm going to ask for a job. A job? Where? ATMY Father's Company, right in the middle of his new operation. I'll tell HIM I can't stand being alone in this house anymore, that I need a purpose. I'll tell HIM I want to be NEAR HIM. He's arrogant. He'll see it as a sign of MY complete surrender. He'll think it's romantic. And he'll put me right inside his perimeter. I could almost feel Oracle processing the sheer audacity of the plan. It was a high-risk, high-reward maneuver. If Julian saw through it, I was dead. But if he didn't, if his ego was as big as I thought it was, I would become a ghost inside his own machine. The risk is extreme, Valkyrie. If he MAKES you, he won't just kill you. He'll make an example of you. The risk of doing nothing is greater. Give me the go-ahead, Oracle. Let me go on the hunt. Another long pause. I held my breath. Permission granted. But you will be wired. I'll arrange a dead drop, a new piece of gear. Subtle. Undetectable, it will give me audio access. If you're in trouble, I'll hear it. It's the best I can do. Solid copy. One more thing, your brother Leo, he's clean. Our surveillance shows no contact from Croft or his associates. He's your only reliable ally in that house. Use HIM wisely. The connection terminated. I ejected the USB drive and powered down the console. The room returned to normal, just a teenager's bedroom with a video game system. But the world had changed. The mission had changed. I was no longer the bait, I was the hook. That evening, I set the stage. I didn't come down for dinner. When my mother knocked on my door, I told her I was too exhausted to eat. Later, Julian came up. He knocked softly. Victoria, may I come in? I opened the door. I had been crying. Real tears this time, summoned from a place of genuine fear and desperation. I looked pathetic. Perfect. What's wrong, my love? He asked, his voice full of concern as he stepped inside. It's this house, I whispered, wrapping my arms around myself. I feel like I'm suffocating here, all day just waiting, thinking, remembering I'm going crazy, Julian. He sat on the edge of my bed and pulled me down next to him, stroking my hair. It's just the recovery process, it takes time. I don't want time, I said, my voice cracking. I want a life. I want to be useful. I want to be with you. I looked up at him, my eyes wide and pleading. I know it's silly, but... When you and Dad were talking about the company this morning, about the warehouse, it was the first time in months I felt anything. It was exciting, real. I took a shaky breath, preparing for the final play. I was wondering, I know it's crazy, but could I help at the company? I could answer phones, file papers, anything. I just want to get out of this house. I want to be a part of your world. Please, Julian, I need this. He stared at me, his expression unreadable. For a terrifying second, I thought I had overplayed my hand. I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, not suspicion, but calculation. He was running the angles, assessing the strategic value of my proposal. Then his face broke into a warm, indulgent smile. He thought he understood. This wasn't a power play. This was a plea for dependency. The broken bird wanted to build her nest right in the center of his web. My darling Victoria, he said, tilting my chin up with his finger. I think that is a wonderful idea. He leaned in and kissed me. Of course, you can work with us. I'll speak to your father in the morning. We'll find a special role just for you, right by my side. The relief was so immense it almost made me dizzy. I had done it. I was in. 2 days later was my first day at Clark Logistics. It wasn't the bustling headquarters I remembered from my summer jobs in high school. Julian had insisted I work at the new operational hub, the Wilmington warehouse. It was a vast, windowless concrete box in a desolate industrial park near the port, perfect for privacy. Julian had already installed his own security chief, a hulking, silent man named Dmitri who looked like he had been carved from a block of granite and regret. The few employees were all new hires, all part of the Kestrel team. They moved with a quiet, watchful efficiency that had nothing to do with shipping and everything to do with paramilitary operations. My father was ecstatic. He saw it as a sign of my recovery and a testament to Julian's healing influence. He's bringing you back to us, Victoria, he'd said that morning, his eyes shining with pride. My office was a small glass cubicle next to Julian's. My official title was Logistics Coordinator. My job, as Julian explained it, was to help streamline the paperwork for the new international shipments. In reality, he had given me a front row seat to his entire operation. It was a gesture of ultimate arrogance and control. He was showing me everything, confident that I was too broken to understand what I was seeing. My first task was to input the cargo manifests for the generator components into a new encrypted database system, a system he had designed. I sat at my computer, the blank spreadsheet glowing in front of me. This was it. I was inside. Before I left the house that morning, I had made a detour. Oracle's dead drop had been exactly where he said it would be, taped to the underside of a park bench. It wasn't a wire. It was a necklace, a simple, elegant silver locket. To anyone else, it was a romantic gift. In reality, the locket contained a sophisticated, audio-transmitting bug, voice-activated and with a 48-hour battery life. I was wearing it now, a cold, metallic weight against my skin. Oracle was listening. "Settle in okay?" Julian's voice came from his office. He was standing in the doorway, watching me, a cup of coffee in his hand. I looked up and gave him a small, grateful smile. "Yes, thank you, Julian, for everything, for believing in me." "Always," he said, his smile never reaching his cold, calculating eyes. "Welcome to the family business." The days that followed were a surreal descent into the looking glass. On the surface, I was a diligent, if slightly fragile, employee. I learned the new inventory software, I organized shipping schedules, and I made coffee. I smiled at Dmitri, the silent golem guarding the door, and made polite small talk with the other Kestrel employees, a collection of hard-eyed men with Eastern European accents and an aversion to eye contact. I was a ghost in their midst, a piece of office furniture, utterly ignorable. But every moment was an act of espionage. Every document I filed, I memorized. Every phone call I overheard, I analyzed. Every truck that rolled into the loading bay, I noted its license plate and cargo type. At night, I would lock myself in the bathroom at home, the shower running, and relay the information to Oracle via the PlayStation portal. I was building a case, brick by painstaking brick. The locket was a constant, cold presence against my chest, a reminder that I was not alone. Oracle never spoke during the day, but I knew he was there, listening, recording. A silent partner in my one-woman intelligence operation. Julian was a master of compartmentalization. In the warehouse, he was the efficient, demanding CEO. He would spend hours on the phone, speaking in a mixture of Russian, Arabic, and flawless English, orchestrating his empire of death. But the moment we stepped into the car to go home, he would transform back into the loving fiancé. He would ask about my day, listen to my fabricated anxieties, and plan our future. The psychological whiplash was staggering. It took every bit of my training to keep the two worlds separate, to not let the horror of his day job bleed into the sickening charade of our evenings. One afternoon, about a week into my new role, a new variable arrived. Her name was Anya. Julian introduced her as a customs and compliance specialist from his Geneva office. She was tall, rail-thin, with severe black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She moved with the predatory grace of a panther, and her smile was as cold and sharp as a shard of ice. I disliked her on sight. My instincts screamed that she was not a compliance specialist. She was an enforcer, or worse. Anya treated me with a thinly veiled contempt. She saw me as Julian's pet, a foolish distraction. She would often countermand my minor decisions or speak to Julian in Russian right in front of me, as if I were not even there. Julian allowed it, even seemed faintly amused by it. It was another one of his power games, the dangerous, competent woman versus the broken, dependent one. "The first shipment is scheduled for Friday," she said to Julian one afternoon, standing in the doorway of his office. They thought I was engrossed in my work, but I was listening to every word, my locket transmitting it all to Oracle. "The buyers are getting impatient. They want confirmation that the merchandise has cleared the port. Patience is a virtue they will have to learn," Julian replied coolly. "My timeline is the only one that matters. Has the final component arrived?" "It gets here tomorrow. On a Clark Logistics truck, of course," Anya said with a smirk. "Your soon-to-be father-in-law is so wonderfully accommodating." "He understands the importance of family," Julian said, a hint of dark humor in his voice. The final component. This was it, the last piece of the puzzle, the most critical part of the weapon. I had to find out what it was and which truck it was on. That night, after relaying the intel to Oracle, I received a new directive. Anya Volkov, former SVR, Russian Foreign Intelligence. Specialty, WTWRK and counterintelligence. She is not a subordinate, Valkyrie. She is likely his partner. She is extremely dangerous. Do not engage her. So my instincts had been right. Anya was a spy. This wasn't just a criminal enterprise, it was a state-sponsored operation. The stakes had just been raised exponentially. The next day, the tension in the warehouse was palpable. Anya was everywhere, a storm of nervous energy, snapping at the workers and double-checking security protocols. Julian was in his office, on a conference call with what sounded like the entire Russian mob. A single Clark Logistics 18-wheeler was scheduled to arrive at 1500 hours. The manifest, which I had processed myself, listed its cargo as a high-capacity climate control unit for server farms. It was coming from a tech supplier in Utah. It was a lie, and everyone knew it. I knew I had to get a look inside that truck. But how? Dmitri watched the loading bay like a hawk, and Anya was shadowing his every move. My chance came in the form of my brother. At 14:30, my personal cell phone, the one Julian knew about, rang. It was Leo. "Vic. Hey, I'm in a bit of a jam," he said, his voice sounding genuinely stressed. "My car died. I'm stuck out on the I-15 about 5 miles from your work. Can you possibly come get me? Mom and Dad aren't answering." For a split second, I felt a surge of pure panic. Was this a setup? Had Julian gotten to him? Was this another test? I looked through the glass of my cubicle. Julian was still on his call. Anya was berating a forklift operator. No one was paying attention to me. I made a decision. I had to trust my brother. I had to trust Oracle's assessment that he was clean. This was an opportunity, an excuse to leave the building at the most critical moment. I walked to Julian's doorway. He held up a finger, still talking animatedly in Russian. "Julian, I'm so sorry to interrupt," I said, pitching my voice to sound flustered and apologetic. "That was my brother, Leo. His car has broken down on the freeway near here. He's stranded. I have to go get him." Julian's eyes narrowed. He muted his call. "Now, Victoria, we are in the middle of a very important receiving protocol. I know, and I'm so sorry, but he's my little brother. He's all alone out there. I'll be as quick as I can. An hour, tops, please." I watched his face, my heart pounding. This was the moment. Would he see it as a legitimate family emergency, a normal part of the life he was trying to simulate? Or would he see it as a security breach, an unacceptable deviation from his control? Anya had walked over, her arms crossed, her expression a mask of pure suspicion. "She cannot leave," she said flatly to Julian. "Not today." Julian looked from Anya's cold, hard face to my soft, pleading one. It was a calculated risk. I was betting on his ego, on his desire to be the benevolent protector, to overrule the professional caution of his partner. I was betting he loved playing the part of the good fiancé more than he feared me. He held my gaze for a long moment, then he smiled. "Nonsense, Anya, it is her brother. Family comes first." He turned his warm, reassuring smile on me. "Of course you can go, my love. Take my car. It's faster. Just be safe." Anya looked like she was about to explode, but she held her tongue. Julian had made his decision. "Thank you," I breathed, flooding my voice with relief and gratitude. "Thank you so much." I took the keys to his sleek, black German sedan from the hook by the door and walked out, my legs feeling unsteady. I didn't look back. As soon as I was out of the industrial park, I called Leo. "Where are you really?" "Coffee shop, 2 blocks from the library." "Why? What's up?" "I'm on my way. I need you to do something for me. Something big, no questions." I explained the plan. It was insane. It was reckless, and it was our only shot. When I picked him up, he was pale, but his eyes were resolute. "You got it, Captain," he said, buckling his seatbelt. We drove back toward the warehouse, but we didn't enter the industrial park. I pulled into a dusty, abandoned lot half a mile away, a spot I had scouted on my first day, which offered a partial view of the warehouse entrance. "The truck is due any minute," I said, my eyes glued to the road. "When it passes, we follow. When it's on a clear stretch of road, I'm going to get in front of it and stage an accident, a fender bender, just enough to get it to stop. While I'm distracting the driver, you have one job. You're going to get under the truck and plant this." I pulled a small metallic object from my purse. It was another dead drop from Oracle, picked up that morning. It was a high-powered GPS tracker with a magnetic backing, disguised as a piece of machinery grease. Leo stared at it, then at me. "Vic, this is crazy. You could get killed." "The man I'm engaged to is trying to build a nuclear bomb, Leo," I said, my voice flat and dead serious. "We're a little past crazy." He swallowed hard and nodded. "Okay, what's the signal? When you're done, you run, you disappear into those fields over there, and you head back to the coffee shop. I'll handle the rest." Just then, we saw it. A single Clark Logistics truck trundling down the access road toward the warehouse. My father's name was emblazoned on its side in cheerful blue letters. "That's our guy," I said, starting the engine. My heart was a cold, heavy stone in my chest. Showtime. I pulled Julian's sedan onto the access road, the powerful engine a low growl of contained energy. The Clark Logistics truck was a lumbering beast ahead of us, a sheep in wolf's clothing. Or was it the other way around? "Okay," I said, my voice as calm as a pre-flight checklist. "Road straightens out for about a quarter-mile after this next bend. There are no turnoffs, no cameras. That's our kill box." Leo sat rigid in the passenger seat, his knuckles white where he gripped the dashboard. He was staring at the small, greasy-looking tracker in his hand. "Anya, the woman at the warehouse, she looked like she wanted to kill you, Vic." "She's a professional." "So am I," I said, not taking my eyes off the truck. "And right now, so are you. Remember the plan. I create the distraction. You move on my signal. Find the crate marked HCCU01. It will be the largest, most centrally located. Plant the tracker on a metal strut of the crate itself, not the truck. When you're clear, you don't look back. You just run. Got it?" "Got it," he said, his voice a tight knot of fear and resolve. We rounded the bend. The road stretched out, a ribbon of sun-bleached asphalt shimmering in the heat. It was empty. Perfect. "Get ready," I said. I downshifted, and the sedan leaped forward, eating up the distance to the truck in seconds. I pulled smoothly into the left lane, cruising alongside the driver's cab. I glanced over. The driver wasn't the usual type of long-haul trucker I'd see on the road. He was fit with a shaved head and a grim, focused expression. He wore tactical sunglasses. He didn't even look at me. His eyes were fixed on the road ahead. He was an operator, not a driver. "Okay, Leo, on my mark," I whispered. I sped up, pulling a good 50 feet in front of the truck. I checked my rearview mirror. He was maintaining his distance, cautious. Now, I slammed on the brakes, not a full tire-locking stop, but a hard, sudden deceleration. The sedan's advanced braking system bit down hard. The sound was a high-pitched scream of tortured rubber. In the mirror, I saw the truck's massive grille fill my entire view. For a heart-stopping second, I thought I had miscalculated, that he was going to plow right through us. Then I heard the deafening hiss of his air brakes and the thunderous screech of 16 wheels fighting for purchase. The impact, when it came, was a jarring, metallic thud. My head snapped back against the headrest. It was harder than I'd intended. "Go!" I yelled. Leo was out of the door before the car had fully stopped rocking. He moved low and fast, a blur of motion disappearing around the back of the truck. I took a breath, centered myself, and switched from pilot to actress. I threw open my door, stumbling out onto the asphalt, my hand pressed to my forehead. The truck driver was already out of his cab, his face a thunderous mask of fury. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he roared, stomping toward me. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," I cried, pitching my voice into a high, panicked register. My foot, it slipped off the brake, the accelerator. I was reaching for my water bottle. I was babbling, a perfect imitation of a flustered, incompetent driver. "Are you insane?" he shouted, getting right in my face. He wasn't asking if I was hurt. He wasn't worried about the vehicles. He was furious about the delay. His eyes darted past me, scanning the empty road as if he expected an ambush. "I'm so sorry," I repeated, starting to hyperventilate for effect. "We need to call the police, exchange insurance." "No police," he snarled, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. He grabbed my arm, his grip like iron. "There is no need for police. We will handle this privately." His eyes were scanning my car, then my face, then the area around us. He was looking for something out of place. I could feel his suspicion like a physical force. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker of movement under the truck's trailer. Leo. He was taking too long. I had to escalate the distraction. I let my eyes roll back in my head and allowed my knees to buckle, slumping against him. I think I'm going to be sick." His grip tightened, his disgust warring with his need to control the situation. "Get a hold of yourself." Just then I saw it. A quick flash of Leo's hand from behind the truck's rear wheel. A thumbs up. He was clear. My demeanor changed instantly. I stood up straight, pushing him away with a surprising amount of force. The panicked woman vanished. My voice was cold and level. "You're right. No police here." I pulled a business card from my purse, one of my father's, and a pen. I scribbled a fake name and a burner phone number Oracle had provided. "This is me. Send the bill for the damages to this address. I'll take care of it." The driver stared at me, momentarily stunned by the sudden shift. He saw the woman he had just manhandled transform into someone else entirely. Someone in control. His eyes narrowed. He knew something was wrong. "I'm leaving now," I said, turning my back on him and walking to my car. It was the most dangerous move I had made all day. I got in, started the engine, and drove away, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I didn't look in the rearview mirror until I was a mile down the road. He was still standing there, watching me go. He hadn't moved. I found Leo at the coffee shop, nursing a bottle of water, his face pale and smudged with dirt. "Did you do it?" I asked, sliding into the booth across from him. He just nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Yeah, I did it. Vic, that crate, it felt cold, even through the metal, and it was heavy, so heavy the truck's frame was groaning." "You did good, Leo," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "You did really good. You might have just saved a lot of lives." He finally looked at me, a new, hard-earned respect in his eyes. "What now?" "Now I drop you off a block from your car, you call a real tow truck, and you go home. This never happened. You understand?" He nodded. "Yeah, I understand." The drive back to the warehouse was the longest of my life. I pulled up in Julian's slightly dented sedan. The big Clark logistics truck was already backed into the loading bay, its cargo doors wide open. A forklift was carefully, almost reverently, lifting a massive, lead-lined crate from its interior. HCCU-01. I walked inside, my carefully rehearsed story ready. I would be shaken, upset about the accident, apologetic for my long absence. Julian and Anya were waiting for me just inside the entrance. They weren't angry. They were perfectly still, their expressions unreadable. "Victoria," Julian said, his voice dangerously calm. "You were gone a long time." "I'm so sorry," I began, letting my voice tremble. There was an accident, a fender bender. I was so shaken up, and then I had to wait with Leo for the tow truck. Anya took a step forward, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. She wasn't looking at the car keys in my hand or the purse on my shoulder. She was looking at my eyes. "You had an accident," she stated, her voice flat. "You were panicked, frightened." "Yes," I said, trying to look suitably traumatized. "It was terrifying." She tilted her head, a small, cruel smile playing on her lips. "That's very interesting," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Because a frightened woman has a heart rate of over 120 beats per minute. Her pupils are dilated, her skin is flushed. Your heart rate is perfectly calm. Your pupils are normal. You are not frightened, Victoria." She took another step closer, her voice like the hiss of a snake. "You are focused. Why is that?" The world seemed to slow down. The hum of the warehouse lights, the distant beep of the forklift, the very air itself grew thick and heavy. Anya's accusation hung between us, a shimmering, deadly blade. She had seen through the mask. She hadn't just suspected, she had observed, analyzed, and concluded. She was a counterintelligence officer, and I had just failed her polygraph. My mind raced, cycling through 1,000 possible responses. Denial was useless. Pleading ignorance was an insult to her intelligence. There was only one path. Misdirection, attack from an unexpected angle. I looked past her directly at Julian. I let my face crumble, not into the fake panic of before, but into something new. Hurt, betrayal. "Is this what it's going to be like?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, directed only at him. "Is she always going to be here, questioning me, treating me like a criminal in my own father's business?" I turned my full attention to him, my eyes welling with genuine tears of rage and fear. "I come here, Julian, because you told me I would be safe. You told me this would be a place for me to heal, and instead I have her." I gestured toward Anya with a trembling hand, watching my every move, timing my breathing, treating me like a prisoner. "I just had a car accident. I just dealt with my terrified little brother. And I come back to this, an interrogation?" It was a masterful pivot. I wasn't defending my actions, I was attacking Anya's. I was reframing the situation not as a security issue, but as a personal one. A conflict between the loving, trusting fiancé and his cold, paranoid business partner. I was forcing Julian to choose a side. Julian's face was a mask of stone. He looked from me, the picture of wounded vulnerability, to Anya, her face a thundercloud of suspicion. He was caught. Publicly undermining his partner was bad for business. But publicly siding with her against his traumatized fiancé was bad for his cover. Anya saw what I was doing. "Don't be a fool, Julian," she hissed in Russian. "She is playing you. She staged the accident. It was a diversion." Julian held up a hand, silencing her. He stepped toward me, his eyes searching my face, looking for the lie. I held his gaze, my own filled with nothing but the pain he expected to see. "Anya is protective," he said slowly, choosing his words with care. "Her job is to assess threats. Sometimes her methods can be abrasive." "Abrasive?" I scoffed, a tear finally breaking free and tracing a path down my cheek. "She just accused me of being a spy, Julian, in front of your entire staff." That was the masterstroke. I had escalated it, made it public. Now it wasn't just about me and Anya. It was about his authority. The forklift had stopped. The workers were watching, their faces blank but their ears open. Julian's jaw clenched. He turned to Anya, and for the first time I saw a flicker of genuine anger in his eyes. He spoke to her in low, rapid-fire Russian. I couldn't understand all of it, but I caught the key phrases. "You are overstepping. This is my operation. You will stand down." Anya's face went white with fury. She stared at me, her eyes promising a painful and imminent death. Then she turned on her heel and stalked away, disappearing into the back offices. The immediate threat was neutralized. I had won the battle, but I knew with chilling certainty that I had just made a mortal enemy. Anya would not forget this. She would be watching, waiting for me to make one tiny mistake. Julian turned back to me, his expression softening back into the familiar mask of concern. He gently wiped the tear from my cheek with his thumb. "I am so sorry, Victoria. That was unacceptable. I will speak with her. It will not happen again." "I don't want to cause problems between you," I whispered, playing the part of the reluctant victor. "You are not the problem," he said, his voice firm. "You are my fiancé. This is your house as much as it is mine. You belong here." He pulled me into a hug. It was like being embraced by a python. "Now, go home. You've had a difficult day. Dmitri will drive you." It was a dismissal, but a gentle one. He wanted me out of the warehouse. He and Anya needed to talk. The final component was here, and I had become a distraction. Dmitri drove me home in silence. I sat in the back of the black SUV, my mind racing. The tracker was on the crate. Oracle would have its location now. But Anya was on to me. The clock was ticking faster than ever. She would be working to convince Julian that I was a threat. His ego had protected me this time, but it wouldn't last forever. When I got home, I went straight to my room, locking the door. I fired up the PlayStation. A message from Oracle was already waiting. Tracker is active. Payload is stationary inside warehouse. Excellent work, Valkyrie, but the danger level has increased exponentially. ANYAVOLKOV is now your primary threat. She will not be fooled again. I know. She's hunting me. I'm pulling the audio from your locket. Analysis of Julian and ANYA's conversation after you left is ongoing. Preliminary translation, SUGGSDS, they are accelerating the timeline. The shipment is now scheduled for tomorrow night, 2200 HOURS. Tomorrow, my blood ran cold. I had thought I had days. I had less than 36 hours. What's the plan, Oracle? When are you moving in? The reply took a moment. A joint task force is being assembled. Delta FBI hostage rescue team and a HAZMAT unit, but they can't hit the warehouse. What? Why not? The weapon is there. It's a jurisdictional nightmare. The intel is from an unofficial source, ME. Your evidence is inadmissible. Politically, no one wants to authorize a raid on a prominent local businessman's property based on the word of a traumatized pilot and a spook who doesn't exist. They see it as too risky. They're afraid of the political fallout if we're wrong. I stared at the screen, my hands clenched into fists. Bureaucracy. Red tape. While a nuclear bomb was being assembled in my father's warehouse, men in suits in Washington were afraid of getting egg on their faces. So what are you saying? You're not going to stop HIM? We can't stop HIM there. But we can stop HIM in transit. The moment the truck leaves that warehouse, it becomes a matter of national security. It's no longer a local raid. It's an interdiction of a credible WMD threat. At that point, the GLOVES come off. Our orders are to intercept the payload the moment it's on public ROADWAYS. I processed the information. It made a cold, tactical sense. But it left one glaring, terrifying problem. What about MY family? Julian isn't going to leave them alive. Once the shipment is gone, he'll erase his footprint. My PARENTS, Leo there his first stop on the way out of town. If we wait for the truck to move, they'll already be dead. The cursor blinked, a silent, damning admission. He had no answer. The task force was focused on the weapon, not the hostages. In their cold calculus, my family was an acceptable loss. That's not an option, Oracle. I'm not sacrificing MY family. There is no other way, Valkyrie. I stared at the screen, at the blunt, brutal finality of his words. He was wrong. There was another way. A way the men in suits would never sanction. A way that was insane and suicidal and had a near-zero chance of success. Not the only HOSDAGS, Oracle. I'm one too. Julian plans to leave tomorrow night. He'll probably take me with HIM, a human shield, his getaway bride. It's a strong probability. Then that's OURN. If I'm with HIM, I can signal the task force. I can give you his real-time location, his destination, his escape route. I can be your tracker. Absolutely not. That's a suicide mission. He'll have you isolated. ANYA will be with HIM. You'll be unarmed. We're not sending you into that. You're not sending me. I'm already there. This is the only way to guarantee the safety of the civilian ASSETS and the recovery of the payload. You know I'm right. The silence from Oracle was a testament to the terrible logic of my plan. I was the only piece on the board that could be in two places at once, inside the enemy's perimeter and in contact with friendly forces. Valkyrie. Just tell me one thing, Oracle. When the time comes, can you get a message to Leo, securely? Yes. Then that's the plan. I'm going dark. I'll be the perfect bride until the very end. Just make sure your team is ready when I light the fuse. I didn't wait for a reply. I terminated the connection, ejected the drive, and shut down the console. The plan had formed in my mind, a desperate, brilliant, terrible thing. I was going to let Julian Croft take me. I was going to walk willingly into the heart of the fire, but I wasn't going to be a hostage. I was going to be the detonator. The final day was a symphony of deception. I moved through the hours with a serene, almost blissful calm. The decision, once made, had a clarifying effect. The fear was still there, a cold knot in my stomach, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of purpose. I was a weapon that had finally been aimed. At the warehouse, the atmosphere was electric. The workers moved with a silent, urgent precision, loading smaller crates of conventional weapons, assault rifles, RPGs, high explosives, into a secondary truck. This was the undercard, the smokescreen for the main event. Anya watched me with the unblinking intensity of a hawk studying a mouse. She said nothing to me, but her presence was a constant physical pressure. She was waiting. I gave her nothing to see. I was the picture of a woman in love, slightly overwhelmed but deeply happy to be included. I organized meaningless paperwork, fetched coffee for Julian, and talked to my mother on the phone about flower arrangements for the wedding. Every word, every action, was a lie designed to reinforce Julian's belief in his own genius. Julian himself was a whirlwind of activity, a conductor reaching the crescendo of his masterpiece. He was on the phone constantly, confirming wire transfers, finalizing logistics, and promising his unseen buyers that their prize was on its way. He treated me with a possessive, theatrical affection, often pulling me close to kiss my forehead or whisper some sweet nothing about our future as he directed his men. It was for Anya's benefit, a demonstration of his control over all his assets, including me. "Tonight, my love," he murmured to me in the early afternoon, his lips close to my ear, the scent of his expensive cologne a sickeningly familiar smell. "Everything changes tonight, for both of us, a new world." "I can't wait," I whispered back, my voice full of adoration. The key was Leo. I feigned a debilitating migraine around 3 o'clock, a callback to my earlier performances. Julian, eager to get me out of Anya's direct line of sight, was all too happy to send me home. "Go and rest," he said, his voice laced with concern. "I need you strong for our journey tonight. I'll be home by 8 to pick you up." Our journey? The word sent a chill down my spine. Dmitri drove me home. My mother was out at a charity luncheon. My father was at the main office, blissfully unaware of the hornet's nest he had financed. The house was empty, except for Leo. I found him in his room, ostensibly studying, but I could see the tension in the set of his shoulders. He knew today was different. I closed his door. "It's tonight," I said, my voice low. There was no time for subtlety. He looked up, his face pale. "What's tonight?" "The end of the game. Julian is leaving. He's taking me with him, and he's not planning on leaving any witnesses." Leo's eyes widened in horror. "What? No. Vic, you can't go with him. We have to call the police. We have to." "The police can't handle this, Leo. It's already in motion. A team is in place." "But they can't move until Julian makes his play. I am the only thing keeping you and Mom and Dad alive right now. He thinks I'm his hostage. As long as he has me, he thinks he has leverage." I took a deep breath. "I need you to do exactly as I say. This is the most important thing I will ever ask of you." He just nodded, his young face set with a grim maturity that hadn't been there a week ago. "At exactly 9 p.m., you will receive a text message. It will be from a number you don't recognize. It will contain a single word. Go. The moment you receive that text, you will go to Mom and Dad. You will not explain. You will not argue. You will tell them there is a gas leak in the house and you need to get them out immediately. You will drag them out if you have to. You will get them in your car, you will drive them to the safe house location I'm about to give you, and you will not, under any circumstances, answer any phone calls or contact anyone until you are told it is safe. Do you understand? I wrote an address on a slip of paper. It was a small, out-of-the-way motel 2 hours north, a place Oracle had secured for us. Leo stared at the paper. "A gas leak? They're never going to believe that." "You have to make them believe it," I said, my voice hard. "Your lives depend on it. If Julian calls and they answer the phone, he'll know something is wrong. He'll come back, or he'll send someone like Anya. You have to be gone, you have to be ghosts." "What about you?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "He's taking you, what happens to you?" I put my hands on his shoulders, forcing him to look at me. "My team is watching. The people I work for, they will be there. My job is to lead Julian into their trap. Your job is to protect our family. We both have a mission tonight, Leo. Don't fail yours." He straightened up, the fear in his eyes being replaced by a steely resolve I recognized from the faces of 100 young airmen I had trained. He was a soldier now. "I won't," he said. I hugged him, a quick, hard embrace. "I'm proud of you." I pulled away before he could see the tears in my eyes. I went to my room and packed a small overnight bag, just as Julian had instructed. A change of clothes, toiletries, the props for our romantic getaway. I laid out a simple, elegant black dress to wear. If this was to be my final performance, I would be dressed for the part. At 7:55, I heard Julian's car pull into the driveway. My heart began to pound, a slow, heavy drum. Showtime. I went downstairs. My parents were there, beaming. They thought this was a surprise trip, a pre-honeymoon gesture from their perfect future son-in-law. "Isn't this wonderful?" my mother gushed. "Julian is taking you away for the weekend." A little break before all the wedding madness begins. Julian walked in, smiling, carrying a single red rose. He was the perfect romantic hero. He handed the rose to me and kissed me deeply. It was a kiss of ownership, of finality. "Are you ready, my love?" he asked. "I'm ready," I said, meeting his gaze. We said our goodbyes. My mother hugged me tightly. "Be happy, darling, you deserve it." My father clapped Julian on the back. "Take care of my girl." The bitter irony was a physical taste in my mouth. They were entrusting me to my own executioner. As we walked out to his car, I glanced back at the house. Leo was standing in the window of his room, watching. I gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. He nodded back. The message was passed. The plan was in motion. We drove in silence for a few minutes, heading not toward the freeway, but back toward the industrial park. "I just have one last piece of business to take care of at the warehouse," Julian said, his voice casual. "Then we'll be on our way, just you and me." "Okay," I said, my voice a soft murmur. I leaned my head against the cool glass of the window, feigning a sleepy contentment. The locket was cold against my skin. I knew Oracle was listening to every word, every beat of my heart. We arrived at the warehouse. The secondary truck was gone. The only vehicle left was the primary truck, the one carrying the nuclear payload, its engine rumbling, ready to go. Anya and Dmitri were waiting by the loading bay doors. Anya had a duffel bag at her feet. Dmitri was holding a compact submachine gun. The pretense was over. Julian got out of the car. Anya said something to him in Russian, gesturing toward me. He shook his head and replied curtly. He came around and opened my door. "Come, Victoria, I want you to see this." The culmination of all our hard work. He led me into the vast, empty warehouse. The only thing left was the single, massive crate, now sealed inside the back of the truck. "In a few hours," Julian said, his voice resonating with pride, "that crate will be on a container ship, bound for a client who will change the balance of power in the Middle East forever. And we will be on a private jet, bound for a new life where no one can ever touch us." He turned to me, his eyes glittering with a fanatical light. "And it's all thanks to you, my dear. Your family provided the perfect cover, and you provided the perfect motivation." "Motivation?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "For revenge," he said, his smile turning cruel. "Did you really think I could forget? The sound of your missile, the fire, I lost everything that day. My operation, my men, my face." He gestured to his handsome features. "This is the work of a very expensive surgeon in Brazil, but the scars are still there. I wanted the woman who did that to me to watch as I built my new empire on the ashes of her life. I wanted her to fall in love with me. I wanted her to give me everything, and you did." He laughed, a cold, empty sound that echoed in the cavernous space. It was the most exquisite revenge I could have possibly imagined. He took a step back, his face hardening. "But now, the game is over. Anya was right about you. The accident today was too convenient. You are a better actress than I gave you credit for, but it doesn't matter anymore." He nodded to Dmitri. The hulking man raised his weapon, the barrel pointed directly at my heart. This was it, the final scene. My hand went to the locket at my throat. It was a nervous gesture, one a frightened woman would make. But my thumb found the tiny, almost invisible indentation on the side. The panic button. A single, short press to signal my location was compromised. A long, 3-second press to signal a direct, imminent threat to my life. "It's a shame, really," Julian said, his voice laced with mock pity. "I almost came to enjoy our little romance. Goodbye, Valkyrie." My thumb pressed down. 1, 2, 3. The trap was sprung. The world didn't explode. There was no screech of tires, no sudden crash of a SWAT team through the walls. For a terrifying, heart-stopping moment, there was only the cold, dead silence of the warehouse and the black, unblinking eye of Dmitri's submachine gun. Julian's smile widened. "Expecting a rescue? I'm afraid your friends are too late, too cautious." He tapped the side of his head. "I have been monitoring local and federal law enforcement radio frequencies for the last 12 hours. There is no chatter, no unusual activity. No task force is coming for you. You are utterly alone." He was right, of course. Oracle's team wouldn't be on any official channels. They were a ghost unit. But for a split second, a sliver of doubt pierced my resolve. What if I had been wrong? What if Oracle had been overruled? What if I had just signed my own death warrant for nothing? Anya stepped forward, a thin, cruel smile on her face. She pulled a silenced pistol from the waistband of her pants. "Let me do it, Julian. It would be my pleasure." "Patience, my dear," Julian said, his eyes still locked on mine, savoring the moment. "I want to see the hope die in her eyes first." My mind was a blur of frantic calculation. My family was safe. Leo had the message. That was mission Objective 1. Objective 2 was neutralizing the threat, but I was out of time and out of options. The plan had depended on an external force that hadn't arrived. Think, what had Oracle said? They can't hit the warehouse, they can stop him in transit. Transit. I wasn't in transit yet, I was still in the warehouse. My signal was a distress call, not a go order for the assault. I had sprung the trap too early. Julian was going to kill me here and now, and the task force would be waiting for a truck that would never arrive on their terms. It was over. I had failed. And in that moment of absolute failure, a strange calm washed over me. The fear evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I was going to die. I was not going to die as a victim. I was going to die as a soldier. I dropped the act. The trembling, frightened fiancé vanished. My posture straightened. My eyes went flat and hard. I looked directly at Julian, my gaze unwavering. "You're right about one thing, Al-Khatib," I said, my voice low and clear, the sound of it echoing slightly in the vast space. "You did lose everything that day. You just don't know how much yet." His smile faltered, confused by my sudden defiance. Anya's eyes narrowed, and then we heard it. It wasn't a loud noise. It was a soft, almost gentle thump-thump-thump from outside, a sound that grew steadily, rapidly, in volume. It was a sound I knew better than my own name. The sound of helicopter rotors beating the air into submission. Julian's head snapped toward the ceiling. Anya cursed in Russian, spinning toward the loading bay doors. Dmitri, the only one who seemed to have retained his professional composure, kept his weapon trained on me, but his eyes darted nervously toward the entrance. The sound grew to a deafening roar. It wasn't one helicopter. It was 3. They weren't circling, they were descending, taking up positions around the warehouse, their searchlights cutting brilliant white swaths through the darkness, pinning the building in a cage of light. "What is this?" Julian roared, his composure finally shattering. "Who are they?" Before anyone could answer, the massive, corrugated steel door of the loading bay began to groan. It wasn't opening. It was buckling inward, a huge dent appearing in its center as if an invisible giant had just punched it. Then, with a deafening shriek of tearing metal, a massive, armored vehicle, a Bearcat, smashed through the door, its headlights blinding, its armored prow scattering debris like toys. Men poured out of the back before it had even come to a full stop. They were specters clad in black tactical gear, night vision goggles glowing with an eerie green light. They moved with a fluid, terrifying efficiency, fanning out, weapons raised, laser sights dancing across the warehouse walls. FBI HRT patches were on their shoulders. Simultaneously, 2 more explosions rocked the building as the side and rear entrances were breached. More teams flooded in, cutting off all escape routes. "Federal AGNTS, drop your weapons. Get down on the ground, now." The voice came through a loudspeaker, an amplified roar of absolute authority. It had all happened in less than 10 seconds. For a moment, everyone was frozen in a tableau of shock. Julian, his face a mask of disbelief. Anya, her pistol still in her hand, her eyes darting between the assault teams, looking for an angle, an escape that didn't exist. Then the training kicked in. Anya raised her pistol, not at the agents, but at me. If she was going down, she was taking me with her. She never fired the shot. A single, sharp crack echoed through the chaos, and a small, perfect red dot appeared on her forehead. She crumpled to the ground without a sound. A sniper, positioned on a nearby rooftop, had been waiting for that exact moment. Dmitri, seeing his partner fall, made a fatal mistake. He swung his submachine gun toward the nearest group of agents. Before he could squeeze the trigger, a volley of suppressed gunfire erupted from the HRT team. He was thrown backward, his body riddled with bullets, and collapsed in a heap. It was over. Julian stood alone, unarmed, surrounded. The king of his own private empire was now just a man in a fancy suit standing in a ruined warehouse. He looked at the agents, at the bodies of his partners, and then, finally, at me. The hatred in his eyes was pure, distilled venom. He hadn't been defeated by the FBI. He had been defeated by me. He lunged, not for a weapon, but for the cab of the truck. If he could just get it moving, just get it out of the warehouse, he was tackled before he took 2 steps. A mountain of a man in tactical gear drove him into the concrete floor, grinding his face into the dust. He was cuffed, searched, and hauled to his feet, a string of curses and threats spitting from his lips. An agent in a suit, the site commander, walked toward me. His face was grim. "Captain Clark, I'm Agent Thorne. Are you injured?" "Negative," I said, my voice raspy. He nodded toward the open back of the truck, where a HAZMAT team was already cautiously approaching the massive crate. "You did good work, Captain, you and your phantom friend." He allowed himself a small, wry smile. "We got the signal from your panic button. Oracle patched it through to us, told us you were compromised and the target was about to execute. That changed the rules of engagement, gave us the justification we needed to come in hard and fast." I finally understood. My signal hadn't sprung the trap too early. My signal was the trap. It was the final piece of evidence they needed, the imminent threat to a U.S. officer that allowed them to bypass all the red tape. Oracle had known it would come to this. He had been counting on it. Agent Thorne's radio crackled. He listened for a moment, then looked at me. "Your family is secure. Your brother followed your instructions perfectly. They're en route to the safe house." Relief washed over me, so profound and absolute that my knees finally gave way. I didn't fall. Agent Thorne caught my arm, steadying me. "It's over, Captain," he said, his voice softer now. "You're safe." I looked at the chaos around me. At the agents securing the scene, at the HAZMAT team confirming the payload, at the pathetic, defeated figure of Julian Croft being led away in cuffs. And for the first time in a very long time, I believed it might actually be true. Just then, my personal cell phone, still in my purse, began to ring. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered, my hand shaking slightly. "Go for Valkyrie," I said. "Nice work, kid," Oracle's gravelly voice came through the line. "You lit the fuse, we handled the fireworks. Now get some rest, that's a direct order." The line went dead. I looked at the phone in my hand, then at the scene of devastation and victory around me. It was a strange and unfamiliar feeling. Not triumph, not joy. It was the quiet, profound, and deeply satisfying feeling of a mission accomplished. The weeks that followed were a blur of debriefings, reports, and carefully managed silence. The official story, the one fed to the press, was a masterpiece of bureaucratic fiction. An international smuggling ring, dealing in stolen industrial equipment, had been brought down in a multi-agency sting operation. Clark Logistics was praised for its cooperation with the investigation. The name Julian Croft was never mentioned. Al-Khatib remained, officially, dead. The nuclear threat was erased from the public record, a secret buried in the deepest vaults of national security. My family was brought back from the safe house after 2 days. They had been told a simplified, sanitized version of the truth. Julian was a con man, a high-level fraudster who had been using my father's company as part of a massive criminal scheme. The FBI had been investigating him for months, and I had been recruited to help them from the inside. It was a story that protected them from the horrifying reality of what had almost happened, and it cast me in a role they could understand, the hero. The change in them was immediate and profound. My mother's suffocating concern was replaced by a quiet, awestruck respect. She looked at me not as her broken daughter, but as a stranger she was only just beginning to know. My father, humbled and horrified by how easily he had been duped, threw himself into repairing the damage to his company and, more importantly, to his family. The ambition was still there, but it was now tempered with a newfound caution, a deeper appreciation for the things that couldn't be quantified on a balance sheet. But the biggest change was in Leo. The carefree kid was gone, replaced by a young man who had looked into the abyss and hadn't flinched. We shared a secret that no one else in our family would ever understand. We had been soldiers together for one terrifying night. There was a new, unbreakable bond between us, forged in a crucible of fear and courage. I didn't stay home for long. The quiet suburbia, once a suffocating prison, now just felt small. My medical leave was rescinded, my PTSD diagnosis reevaluated and reclassified as resolved. The commendation for the original Al-Khatib strike was quietly removed from my file, and a new one for my role in the interdiction of the WMD threat took its place. It was a medal I would never wear for a mission that never officially happened. I went back to Creech, back to the darkened container and the glowing screens. But something was different. The ghost in the machine was gone. The voice that had haunted my nights was silenced, not by a missile, but by my own actions on the ground. I had faced my demon, not as a remote executioner from 30,000 feet, but as a woman, standing on her own 2 feet, fighting for her own life and the lives of the people she loved. My work had a new clarity, a new weight. I understood in a way I never had before the true meaning of the power I wielded. It wasn't about pushing a button. It was about the lives on the ground, the families, the futures that hung in the balance with every decision I made. It was a terrible, awesome responsibility, and for the first time I felt truly worthy of it. 6 months after the raid, I received a package at my on-base mailbox. There was no return address. Inside was a simple, elegant silver locket, identical to the one I had worn, except this one was clean. There was a small, handwritten note with it. Every ghost deserves a second chance. Welcome back to the sky, Valkyrie. Oh, I held the locket in my hand, a small, cool weight in my palm. It was a reminder of the darkness I had walked through and the strength I had found there. Revenge, I realized, was never the mission. Julian had been driven by it, and it had consumed him. For me, the mission had been about something else entirely. It was about reclaiming my own life, my own truth, from the lies he had tried to build around me. It was about refusing to be a victim, refusing to be a ghost in my own story. The truest victory isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about surviving them. It's about taking the broken pieces of your life and building something stronger, something truer. It's about finding your purpose not in the absence of fear, but in the courage to face it. I put on the necklace. It felt right. I walked out of the mailroom and into the vast, open expanse of the airbase. A fighter jet screamed overhead, tearing a seam in the bright blue Nevada sky. The sound was no longer a trigger. It was a promise, the sound of freedom. I looked up and smiled. I was home. The mission was just beginning.